Hedgerow surveys. Hedgerows are a common sight in the English countryside, with many dating back thousands of years. In 1974, a man called Hooper developed a survey technique which could help determine the age of hedges by looking at the woody species within a 30-metre stretch and multiplying that by 110 years. However, this is not exact and has had a few issues, such as you could be a few centuries out and it doesn't consider dominant species. Now let's look at the survey process itself.
So we've got quite a nice hedge here. What I'm looking for is I need a hedge to be at least 30 metres long, as the survey itself needs 30 metres. If it's longer than 30 metres, we walk the full length of the hedge and make a decision on which part we want to survey, the 30 metres. You look for the average style along the whole hedge and choose the best section. If there are gaps, gateways, or just where the hedge has died out, all of this is noted down on the survey form. So basically, all we need to carry out a hedgerow survey is a clipboard with your form. You will also need a GPS, obviously a pen, very important, several pens because you're bound to lose one, and a 2-metre measuring stick. This is because we're going to measure height, width and all sorts of other things, but we'll come to that in a moment. So the 2-metre measuring stick is really quite important. You can't really do this without it. So this is the number one. So what we start off with doing is, with the survey form, you fill out the date, the time, your name, your location. You take your GPS setting of here. You note all of that down. Basically start at the top of the form and fill out every box. When carrying out surveys, it's incredibly important to make sure every single box is filled out. We look at our hedge. We look at where it starts, where it ends, the gaps in it, if there's any nodes, which is where other hedges come into it, if it's cross-sectioned with any other hedges or anything like that. Now, here on site, we don't have a huge number of hedges to choose from. So I've chosen the hedge that is backing onto the dogleg field, to the entrance of the site. It's quite a nice looking hedge, it's well established. It's a good 30 metres long, so that ticks that box. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to walk the full length of this hedge and decide where exactly I want to carry out my 30 metre section. Okay, so here we go. So we've walked along the hedge and we've chosen our 30 metre section and we've marked it out so we know where it starts and where it ends, and we've taken our GPS from both start and end points. Now it's time to get all of the measurements for the hedge. So we take our trusty pole and we're going to take the average height of the hedge. So my 2-metre stick, chop it down. So we've worked out the average height, which is 2 metres. Went up a little bit further along and it went down a bit in a few gaps, but the average height is 2 metres. It's quite a nice height for a hedge. So now we're going to do the width, and basically you just literally stick the pole through it. Straight up and I. Having taken about half a dozen measurements all the way down the 30 metres, it's 2 metres and 10 centimetres on average in width. So I note that down onto my form. Next measurement is the height to the vegetation of the hedge. so the basal vegetation layer. If you look, the lower part of the hedge is actually quite bare, so it's where this growth starts. Which here, 70 centimetres. Again, I'm going to do multiple measurements all the way down. Next we're looking at the hedgerow shape. This is quite a typical hedgerow shape. It's got a relatively thin base and then with a nice bulbous top part to it. It's a bit leggy, it hasn't been trimmed yet. So we've got lots of options here to choose from. So you just have to tick which one of those suits the hedge that you're on. Is it freshly planted? Is it coppiced? Has it been recently laid? You can even draw a sketch of it if you feel like it. So we've now got all of the measurements for our hedge. Height, width, marginal vegetation and everything else. So now we're going to look at the woody species itself within the hedge. Parts of the hedge won't count. It is only woody species that we're interested in. So things like the brambles, that's not included. The bryony family, they're not included. It is only the woody species. Dogrose does, we do note a dogrose, but it's mainly dogwoods, hazels, elms, field maples, hawthorns, blackthorns, those species that we are particularly interested in for a hedge. So having walked the 30 metres of this hedge, I can now make a decision on the percentages of each of the species. We've only got the suckering elm, hawthorn and elderflower. I passed 3 large, nice big clumps of elderflower, a few hawthorn, but the vast majority is the elm. So I would say in this hedge I've got probably about 80% of elm, 15% of hawthorn and 5% of the elderflower.